Welcome to the Conservation Corps North Bay Staff Training, and this is training module number 2. And since it's training module number 2, you should have with you right now your training module worksheet number 2. And I've said this before in the first module, and I'll probably repeat it in each module because people may not go through the modules in a linear fashion. But the module worksheets are an important part of the training, and they're intended to serve as outlines for your training. And the worksheets contain several questions or prompts that will require you to respond in writing. And I realize that writing is not everybody's thing and that it may be a difficult task. However, this presents an opportunity for you to engage this material at a deeper level and in a more thoughtful way. And it allows you to share your unique perspectives or your unique takes on things. The worksheets are certainly not intended to be a test or an exam on how well you understood the material. There are no right or wrong answers or responses to the questions asked. You're not graded or judged on your responses, and your reactions are intended to extend your thinking and allow you to dive deeper into the material. I would suggest when you complete the module that you share the module with an appropriate supervisor, if that's the case, or another staff member, or sit down with someone and discuss your responses, because your honest, candid responses may be very, very helpful in adding to our understanding and improving of the training modules. So let's begin with module number 2. Well, the objective of module 1 was to make the point that we all process information about the world through our own individual lenses or filters or windows we choose to look out of. That metaphor, like I'm looking out a window to my left and I'm seeing my house, the neighbor's house next door. If I look out the window in front of me, I see the house across the street. So depending on which, the metaphor is depending on which window you look out of, you see different things. But we have filters or lenses or windows we look out of. And we use these filters to create our own individual life maps or our life scripts of what we think is real and how we think we should act. And these life scripts or life maps help determine how we interact with others and with the world around us. And it works the same way for other people. Their life scripts and maps determine how they interact with others also. And typical filters or lenses or traps or windows, sensory experiences, our culture, that definitely colors how we view incoming information, our values and beliefs, our ambitions, our expectations, race, our socioeconomic status, our gender, our age, our sexual orientation, our religious affiliation, and so on and so on and so on. So all of these things filter the information that is coming from the real world as it comes to us, and we develop our own individual life scripts and life maps. Or as the quote says here, we don't see things as they are, we see them as we are. Before we begin, I want to watch a brief video called The Window. And then when the video is over, I'm going to ask you to put the video on stop, and I'm going to ask you to go to page 2 of your module worksheet and respond to the prompt at the top of the page. But let's take a look at the video first. Okay, okay. Now I'm going to ask you in a minute to put the video on pause and go to page 2 and respond to the prompt at the top of the page, which says video the window. So please put the video on pause, respond in writing on page 2, and then when you're done with your response, turn the video back on. Thank you. Okay, go ahead. Well, okay. Okay, thank you for responding. All right, so now we're faced with a very interesting problem or dilemma. How do we reconcile our individual life scripts or maps with those of our closest friends, our family, co-workers, clients, or society in general? I mean, just look at the present political discourse that goes on. You're talking about different life scripts clashing, and that's, well, to start with, we need to begin to understand ourselves and how the particular window we look out of affects and shapes our own individual behaviors. Then we need to begin to understand how our behaviors affect other people. Next, we need to begin to understand others and how their filters or windows affect and shape their individual behaviors. And finally, we need to begin to understand how the behaviors of others affect us. So it's pretty simple, folks. The reality is we're all connected. And as the graphic below, you can see my attitude affects my behavior, which affects your attitude, which affects your behavior, which in turn affects my attitude. And we get into a cycle. Okay, so we need a mechanism or some way of doing this, and that's what we're going to take a look at. Now, there is an interpersonal communication model that outlines how we might become aware of how our lenses affect and shape our behavior, become aware of how our behavior affects others, become aware of how others' lenses affect and shape their behavior, and become aware of how others' behaviors affect us. So if we take a look at this diagram, the JoHari window, an interpersonal, an intrapersonal, and interpersonal communication model. At the top, you have me. So that represents me, and down the left side, you have others. And below me, you have things that are known to me. So the red box are things that are known to me and things that are known to other people. Now, the green box are things that are not known to me, but they are known to other people. The light blue box are things that are known to me, but not known to you, not known to other people. And the orange box are things that are not known to me and things that are not known to you. So this breaks up then our individual psychology into 4 boxes. Now, granted, they're somewhat artificial, but they have some value. Well, let's just take a look. So the first box, things that are known to me and things that are known to others, that's the red box, is referred to as the announced self or the public arena. And these are things I know about me and you know about me. I let you know them. So this is sort of my image, my facade, the way I dress, the music I like, the food I like. These are all things that I announce to the world. Now, the green box are things that are not known to me but are known to you. This is my denied self or my blind spot. This box contains those things that you know about me but that I don't know. You're not sharing them with me. These are things that are denied to me. So I have bad breath. Well, I'm not aware that I do, but you're not telling me that. Or you don't like the way I laugh too loud. You know that about me, but I don't know it. It's not being shared with me, so I'm blind to that information. Next, we have what's referred to as the concealed self or the hidden self, the light blue box. And these are things I know about me, but I don't share or self-disclose to you. I think I drink too much, but I'm not sharing that with you or sharing that with other people. That's sort of concealed. And finally, we have the unknown self, things that I don't know about me and things that you don't know about me. And this is can be referred to as the unconscious. Now, this is the JoHari window, and this is a technique that helps people better understand their relationship with themselves and with others. It was created by two psychologists, Joseph Luft and Harrington Ingram, in 1955, so it's quite old, but it's still very useful, and is used primarily in self-help groups and corporate settings. And Luft and Ingram called it the JoHari window after their first names. Joseph, they took the J-O from Joseph, and they took H-A-R-I from Harrington, and so it became JoHari. Now, it can be viewed sort of as a house with four rooms. Room one is the part of ourselves that we and others see, and that's the announced self. Room two contains the aspects that others see about us, but we're unaware of, and that's the denied or blind spot. Room three is the private place we know, but we hide from others, and that's our concealed or hidden self. And room four is the unconscious. Now, the rooms or quadrants, as they're presented here, are of equal size. But in the real world, the announced self is usually much smaller. Usually much smaller. We're only announcing a little bit about ourselves. We're concealing a lot, and a lot is denied to us also. This model is intended to give us a way that we can open up lines of communication with each other and become more transparent. And let me show you how it works. So the goal is to expand our announced self. And in so doing, we are diminishing our concealed self, and we are diminishing our denied self. Now, the way we diminish our denied self and our unconscious self is through asking for feedback. So by asking for and being open to feedback from others, we begin to shrink our denied self or our blind spot. And we gain information about ourselves that was denied to us, and therefore we can incorporate that new information into our announced self. The other mechanism we use is sharing with others or self-disclosure. And by sharing with others or self-disclosing to others information about ourselves, we begin to shrink our concealed self or our hidden self and increase our announced self. And others gain new information about us, and we become more transparent and more open. So these two processes, feedback and self-disclosure, are the key mechanisms that allow us to expand our announced selves and become more open and transparent with each other. As each of us becomes more open and transparent, we can more easily understand and communicate with each other. So that's the model, and that's the process. The two mechanisms, asking for feedback and being open to receiving feedback, and sharing with others, self-disclosing. Now, I'm going to ask you to put the video on pause, and I'm going to ask you to go to page 4 of your worksheet, and at the top, there is a prompt. Please respond in writing, and when you're done responding, please turn the video back on, and we'll continue. Okay, so put it on pause, please. Well, okay. Okay. Well, feedback is a major mechanism here. So we're going to talk about feedback. There are two main purposes for giving feedback. Two. One is to improve a person's job performance or behavior. Well, there are two main purposes in a work situation for giving feedback. One is to improve a person's job performance. So you're giving some constructive criticism, some helpful feedback to help improve performance. Or the other is to reinforce a person who's doing a very good job, to reinforce their performance. So those are the two major reasons for giving feedback: to improve, to give constructive criticism, or to reinforce and give a pat on the back. Now, feedback, what does it look like? Feedback involves someone's thoughts on another person's performance or behavior that are delivered in a form that enables the recipient to listen to what is being said. So they have to be delivered in a way that can be acceptable, that's not going to put the person on the defensive. So they need to be timed properly, and they need to be very objective, not subjective. They need to be delivered, they need to be delivered so that it can be received constructively. The focus should be on an individual's behavior and not on the individual attributes or characteristics. They should be non-judgmental. So if you say to someone, you're lazy, well, that's not talking about a behavior. That's talking about an attribute. The behavior might be you sit at your desk and play with your phone a lot. That's the behavior. The attribute, you might say, well, the person is lazy. They don't want to get anything done. Feedback should also be delivered so that the person can reflect on what has been said. So it needs to be very clear, and it needs to be very, very specific, not vague. And it has to be delivered so that the recipient can consider how to take an action if called for as a result. So in other words, the individual has to be able to consider, how can I do something about this? So it has to be actionable, and it has to be goal-directed. So I want to emphasize, again, the distinction between attributes and behavior. Attributes are characteristics or qualities or properties or traits that belong to a person. Loyalty, courage, integrity, pig-headedness, laziness, lack of motivation or lack of motivation. Behaviors, they're observable and measurable actions that a person engages in. Laughing, telling the truth, being on time for work, cursing, not doing your assigned job. Those are behaviors. So I'm going to ask you to put the video on pause and go to page 6 in your worksheet. And I want you to respond to the prompt at the top of the page. And when you have completed your response to the prompt, please turn the video back on, and then we'll continue. Okay, put it on pause, please. Okay, let's continue on. Now, this is an 8-step model for giving feedback. And this is something that you should internalize. First of all, giving feedback is not easy, and it's not intuitive. It has to be practiced. This has to be learned and practiced. And this is a fairly effective model. So step 1 of the model is to introduce the conversation. So, hey, so-and-so, you have a minute or two? I need to talk with you. And you want to make the talk be brief. You want to make the talk to be brief, 2 or 3 minutes at the most. Well, depending, you'll say, but you don't want to go on and on and on and on. So you want to introduce the conversation. So you want to invite the person to have a conversation. That's step one. Step two is you want to state your purpose or your motive. So let's talk about a scenario. Let's suppose we have a sort of a new worker. They've been hired a month ago, and they're doing a pretty good job, but they're coming late to work several times each week. Okay, so now you've said, hey, so-and-so, you have a minute or two? I need to have a conversation with you. Now you want to state your purpose or your motive. I'm really interested in your successful progress here at the Conservation Corps, and I'm delighted that you decided to join our community. So you're sort of giving the purpose or your motive for the conversation. And it's a positive. You're interested in there being a success and you're delighted that they're in the community. Step three, describe the behavior. Now, remember the behavior. So I've noticed, pardon me, I've noticed that over the past month, you've been arriving 10 or 15 minutes late for work several times a week. So you've described the behavior in a very objective way. Next step, state the impact of the behavior. So state what the consequences of the behavior are. So when you arrive late, it has several consequences. First, others see the behavior and feel that this is an infraction of our community policy and that something should be done about it. And second, this may affect your work evaluation and could interfere with your being advanced or promoted. So you're stating the impact of the behavior. Next, you ask the individual for their perception of the situation. How do you see this situation? Now, allow the person to talk, and it may be very possible that the person will be defensive somewhat, because getting this kind of communication can be defensive producing. But that's okay. Allow them to be defensive. Use your active listening skills. Those are critical. And if the person is defensive, it's natural. So don't try and talk them down out of it or anything. Just use your active listening skills. Step 6, make a suggestion or request. Is there something we can do about this? Or you might say, is there some way I can be of assistance? Or is there a plan that we can come up with or something? So elicit their participation in a solution. Next step, build an agreement on the next step. What will be the next steps? Great, we have a plan, good. What are our next steps? What do they look like? Or how can we evaluate this plan? When should we meet again to assess our progress? Things like that. So build an agreement. Now this can be done and then the final step is to thank the person for the conversation. Hey, I really appreciate. I know getting feedback like this is not the easiest thing in the world. By the way, I want you to know giving it is not the easiest either. But I just think it's important that I wanted everything to work out well for you here. So I appreciate the conversation. And that can be done in a very short period of time. So that's the 8-step model. And here it is outlined. And by the way, the model, here is the information where the model comes from. It's a YouTube video that you can look at. So what I'd like you to do now is I'd like you to put the video on pause. I want you to go to page 7 of your worksheet. And there are 2 prompts. Please respond in writing to that. And when you have completed the prompts, please turn the video back on again. Okay, go ahead, put it on pause. Well, okay, great. Thank you very much for your participation. I appreciate it, and hopefully we'll see you in the next module. Thanks.